Yeah, well, let's just jump right into the action, Shane. And we got to start, of course, in College Station. Man, if this game maybe kicked off a couple hours earlier, we would have done an emergency pod, but we were just exhausted by the end of this action. And Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, of course, the first former Nick Saban assistant to take down the Emperor down there in Tuscaloosa, 41-38. And man, this was a back and forth and back and forth. It was this time last week, Shane, we were burying Zach Calzada. And now he's a damn legend that will live forever in College Station because, he brought the Texas A&M Aggies back. They had firm control of this game basically for the entire thing. And then Alabama, like they would, they came roaring back, took the lead late in the game. And Zach Calzada, unfazed. Hell, it looked like his season may have even come to an end. He got hurt on the game tying touchdown play. He rallies the troops. Bryce Young couldn't score with the game on the line, but you know who did? Zach Calzada and Seth Small. And what an incredible game, Shane. And before you even say anything about it, Shane, I hope you've seen this clip here of Eli Gold, the Alabama radio announcer. Let's kick it to him. He is, quote unquote, calling Texas A&M's final game-winning field goal kick.
What happens? Well, the league is going to get themselves $250,000 because everybody who does not have a seat and those who did have now flooded the field.
Well, this will cost the Aggies $250,000. That's all he had to say. Like, what an asshole, All right, Jay, so old Eli didn't like it, but a lot of us did. Man, thoughts on this one, Nick Saban, Alabama going down. And, of course, their season's not over by any means, but, hell, this gives a totally new outlook for Texas A&M after a couple of struggling weeks here.
Oh, my gosh, Mike. I got to be honest with you here. Full disclosure. You ever feel like you're bad luck sometimes? I mean, honestly, or good luck even. Or, I'm very superstitious. You know this.
Oh, yeah.
And during this game, which we'll get into a little bit, but when they had the punt blocked,
right?
Okay, and scored the touchdown, Alabama scored a touchdown, I was like, oh, my God. So I walk to the kitchen and get me a cold beer. Next thing I know, Texas A&M scores a touchdown. And you got to remember, I wasn't in the game. I wasn't in the living room watching this thing. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the next drive. Alabama goes all the way down, makes this a 7-point game. And I was like, I'm the problem. I'm the problem because there's so many things, and I don't want to take anything away from the night, and I'm not saying I had anything to do with this victory, Mike, but I felt like I was putting bad mojo on this game, so I turned it off because it felt like when I wasn't watching it, the Texas A&M kept winning. Now, I kept checking on my apps and everything like that, of course, just keeping in. But at the end of the game, that's when I watched everything. So when the dust settled the next day, I'm watching it. It's Sunday now. I actually finished the game today just because I felt like I was hurting the Aggies. So I apologize for that loss, Crimson fans. But it's just so funny when you hear commentators like this. I mean, they're just not used to losing. Mm-hmm. Alabama's not used to losing. And the fact that we can consider having an emergency podcast because your team lost, not to Vanderbilt, not to Western Kentucky. No, this is a Texas A&M program that a lot of people had winning the West coming into the season. So that's just how dominant Alabama has been. So I don't understand. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that life is like. Just always winning. I don't. And I'm watching some of these pictures coming out from Texas A&M, and I'm telling you, man, I'd give anything to just be standing on that turf right now, being the first guy. Because think about all the shit we hear with Gary Danielson. I mean, the guy didn't have anything positive said. Could you imagine? He had about 100 pages of notes and feel-good stories for Nick Saban and the boys, and he had to throw it all out at half because he had to say something positive about Texas. How many times are we going to talk about this is the first coach that has been under Nick Saban that has actually been able to beat him? So we don't have to hear that stupid stat anymore. But they're going to still have it. There'll be an asterisk say, well, Jimbo did it once. So, but anyway, I thought it was a great game. I'm so happy for the Aggies because they lost a couple games this year. They were in the dumps, and we talked about this being their national championship. By God, they won it. So congratulations. And like you said, Crimson Tide, man, you could still win out. You may even win another national championship. This may be the wake-up call that you needed. So I don't think there was any losers on that field that night.
Yeah, I mean, we all recognize Nick Saban, the GOAT, greatest of all time, yet I believe he's only had 2 undefeated national championship seasons, and he's got a hell of a lot of championships. So one loss certainly doesn't write you off, but it just goes to show how incredibly difficult it is to go undefeated in the SEC. And again, credit A&M, Zach Calzada, Jimbo Fisher, some tough questions down there in College Station. It was revealed, I don't know if you caught this, Shane, but at the beginning of the broadcast, CBS reported that Jimbo has said that Haynes King essentially is going to be out for the season, they believe now. So it's, it's ride or die with Zach Calzada. And that man, he had one bad pass, the interception, of course, but
yeah,
he is now a legend in College Station. And, last night was just that was only his 4th start. You know what I mean? So, it was kind of foolish to write him off. And, if you whenever you think of Alabama losing a football game, it's always to, one of these dynamic, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Joe Burrow, these guys that run and pass so effectively. Yet here we got Zach Calzada, who I know he can run a little bit. Let's give him a little credit, but much more of a pocket style passer. And, I think that's a credit to him. It's a credit to this Aggies team, particularly this defense, Shane. I mean, the defense.
Yeah.
I know they had a rough third quarter, but the defense was incredible. I believe it was Damani Richardson who made the interception there in the red zone. That's what I thought. It doesn't matter how great you start off against Alabama. I always assume Alabama's going to win the football game. But when you're intercepting Bryce Young in the end zone, you got a 10-point lead. That's when I first thought that Texas A&M really stood a shot at knocking off mighty Alabama in this one. And even when Alabama really started to gain that momentum, Devon Achane with the kick return in the second half, I believe it was the third quarter. That was basically the only positive A&M had in the third quarter. So that kept the crowd alive. It kept them in it. And, I went back and watched the game this morning, and you got Alabama go down there. They took the lead, 38-31, and you got all these despondent A&M fans. I mean, CBS was loving them. Some disappointed Texas A&M fans. They must have panned in on 20 of them while the Aggies were down. And how could you blame them? Because that place was rocking, and then it was so quiet you could hear a damn needle being dropped, whatever that expression is. Yet Zach Calzada rallied the troops and scored the touchdown. I mean, I cannot say enough about the job Jimbo has done getting that kid ready to face Alabama. And again, all the credit in the world to Zach Calzada, who showed up big. And we finally got Jalen Wademeyer. I thought that was huge, getting him going. Yeah. Smith had a great game. Spiller had a great game. And, last but not least, we haven't even mentioned, Shane, we've been kind of, calling them out all season. But the offensive line, they did a hell of a job controlling Alabama's defensive front for much of the night. And like you said, man, the Aggies, they're the envy of college football. Let's give a shout-out, Shane, to our guys, Kyle Lovingood, Philip Golden, longtime supporters of the podcast. They were on the field, storming the field after the game, tagging us in the photos. So we're showing them on the YouTube right now. I really appreciate Kyle and Philip with, reaching out. And I don't know if you saw this, Shane. We'll play this as well, but I'm just lucky those two guys did not try to run into Nick Saban after the game.
Well,
Yeah, so like I said, Shane, I envy Texas A&M fans. I do not envy that Aggie. My goodness, the security force has no regard for men or women if you're on the field. You know what?
yeah, but that's a hell of a war story, Mike. You know, I think I'd be willing to take one from the security staff if I could say, hey, you remember that time Nick Saban got beat down here? Yeah, I was the one that got trucked. It's well worth it. I always think about that Tennessee photo from many years ago, those guys getting arrested. Do you remember? I mean, it was an infamous photo. These kids were down there on the field, so I love it, man. I absolutely love it. And this was a big win. And, you know, I love the fan. The fan reaction is always my favorite, especially when you talk about upsets, you know. So we got some listeners. They're sending their pictures in. You're seeing tweets from even your boy, what the hell, Chris Marler. Yeah, did you see what he said? He was like, Calzada is Johnny what does he say? Vacation Bible School Johnny Manziel. I mean, he's just going to be a reigning legend there for a while. And then on the flip side, did you see what Johnny said later in the game?
I saw after the game he was buying beers. Everybody at the bar. He's
buying beer. So I mean, come on, have fun. This is a huge victory. We're gonna talk about it. Got to get back to work though. But I still find it so funny that here it is. It's a 3-point ball game, and it's not like Alabama didn't play well. They just made some mistakes. They made some stupid errors. And let Texas A&M just take away from this thing. So we had two really good ball programs, and like I said, leaving this game, I still think that both teams are better moving forward because of it.
Yeah, and once Alabama got Jamison Williams in the game, got him going in the second half, I mean, he was unstoppable. They probably wish they got him going a little bit sooner. But, you know, like you said, key thing there, nobody in the West is undefeated at this moment. So Alabama's got everything still in front of them. The only teams they got to worry about, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Auburn. You beat those teams, you control your own destiny in the West, and you got to assume that Alabama's going to be a heavy favorite against all those teams. But they also got LSU, so I mean, the season's not done for you.
No, it's not. But this is college football, man.
Yeah,
I hate top-heavy SEC. Don't get me wrong. I love it when you could literally say any given Saturday somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. Right. It's not going to be a shoe-in like it always has been. So I think SEC football has never been better. In the last 10, 15 years, it has never been better than it is right now.
Guys believing that they could pull off something like this after the last 2 weeks and all the disappointment.
Eliminate all the clutter. Eliminate the clutter and win your space. Guys, there isn't no secret to this. Ain't no magical formula. They got to believe in what you tell them, and they got to eliminate, I don't mean this, all the social media, all the media, all good, bad, and different. Knock it out. Don't read it. I wouldn't even read it. I don't. There's something there, and you got to line up and you got to play each and every week. You write your own history. You believe in your own self. And you're going to be trials, tribulations, and how you're defined by how you respond to adversity. Now you're defined by how you respond to having success. And that's what they got to understand. There's a growing curve in there. And they got to believe in what we did. They believed in what we were telling them. And our coaches did a heck of a job with their players now. Our assistant coaches and our players did a great job of believing, and the leadership of the team did.
And if you could just personally, your thoughts on how proud you are of the way Zach specifically played after all he's been through the last couple of weeks.
Well, he has. And like I told you, playing quarterback is a lot of saddle time, man. It's the hardest position to play in sports, period. There's not a harder position in any sport to play than quarterback. And he's putting the situations he's put in, things that are happening, and not with a full team around him, with 3 receivers missing, with 2 linemen missing, with backs. I mean, people hurt everywhere. It's hard to go in there. And then when you're expected to clean up for all the other, you got other young guys in there. All those linemen, they all had to do it. And they all are growing up the more they play. We've had some unfortunate injuries, but people don't care, and I don't care. That ain't an excuse. But at the same time, that's reality. And you have to understand that there's a difference of what your results are and what the reality of why those results are there, and then you coach through them. And we're doing that, and we're still in the process. Just because we won this game don't fix everything. We got to learn if we're going to prepare and learn to grow from this and understand what we got to do next week. But very proud of Zach. And we're doing that, and we're still in the process. Just because we won this game don't fix everything. We got to learn if we're going to prepare and learn to grow from this and understand what we got to do next week. But very proud of Zach. He's a high-character young man, man. It matters to him. It means something to him, and he's got better each week he's played. Each week he's done something, and he's preparing. He's learning how to play the position of quarterback.
Right side.
I know you're focused on your guys, but what does it mean to you to be the first of Saban's assistants to ever beat him?
It doesn't mean anything to me. And I don't mean that in any disrespect. Listen, Nick is one heck of a football coach. I've known Nick for years. I've considered him a great friend. Coach with him, have a lot of respect for him, and he's got great teams. And the thing that means something to me that our football team is learning to play against other good football teams and have success. And that's the important thing to me. It was inevitable somebody was going to do it in time. So, hey, it happened to be us. That's great. But that doesn't mean anything to me because that's not a goal that I'm trying to talk about or do. I want our organization, our program to do well.
How did it feel to roll the tide and fulfill your promise of beating Saban's ass you made in May?
Well, that was more, the competitor in me coming out when somebody says you can't do something. I have a bad habit of that. So I get a little competitive sometimes. But listen, it doesn't. For our team, again, it goes back that our team understood and beat a really good football team who is a well-coached, well-played, well-talented, very talented, good football team, and that's what's important to me. Listen, I have the utmost respect for Nick Saban. I always have, always will, and I consider us friends, and I think he does too. But we're competitors, and like he said, he didn't think he was going to lose to me either. I don't think I'm going to lose to him. That's ball, and I respect him for that. We grew up in the same neck of the woods. We think we had a lot of the same water.
Is this the potential that you always knew your team could have this season?
Well, we can if we play well, and every team does. And like I say, when you execute, it's amazing. When you're mentally locked in and things go well, and you learn to persevere and you learn to push through things, and you quit when you're young and you make mistakes, like happened those last two games. They would dwell on them because they were not scared, but just didn't want to mess up. You can't look that way. You got to live in vision or circumstance. Which one is it? And they're learning to live in vision.
All right.
What do you think the issues were on some of those red zone possessions where you guys got in close, but they went to field goals instead of touchdowns?
Well, you watched the same game I watched. We threw incomplete passes. We had guys open. We ran a bad route. The guy picked the ball off. We had some drops in critical situations. We had a drop at the end of the game when we could have went 2 minutes. It would have been a first down, and would have started to move the ball. So I don't know that anything went wrong. We just didn't execute. We didn't throw and catch the ball like we need to. We didn't run it effectively enough. Some of those situations, you could say, if we could run the ball effectively in those situations, maybe we wouldn't have had those issues throwing it. So you can second guess everything that didn't work. But the issue is we just didn't execute. We had trouble with the pressures in the first half especially. Quarterback got sacked several times on third down. So it's a lot of issues.